Advocate Gerrie Nel from the National Prosecuting Authority, NPA, or former, is a household name to many South Africans. The man is known for putting Oscar Pistorius and the like of the late former National Police Commissioner Selebi in jail. 2 days ago, Nel resigned from the NPA to join the Afri-forum to pursue their private prosecutions. Joining us this morning is Professor Swart. She's from the Department of Law at the University of Johannesburg, and she will explain to us as to what a private prosecutor is and private prosecution looks into. Prof, good morning. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. It's good to have you in our studio this morning. Let us just start by getting an understanding as to what an independent prosecutor is.
Well, an independent prosecutor is what we should already be having.
Yeah.
The Constitution provides for, establishing a National Prosecuting Authority, and that the prosecutor should be independent and impartial. What's happening now is that Afri-forum is creating a private prosecution agency in a sense. And this is new. Private prosecutions have existed for a while, has always existed. There are instances of this. But the idea of an agency is new. So this is what is interesting.
Is it the first one of its own here in South Africa?
Yes.
Okay.
But
the law allows for it?
Yes, it is going to apparently prosecute corruption and other crimes, mostly corruption. But there are legal hurdles in terms of whether they would be able to succeed in private prosecutions, because under the Criminal Procedure Act, there are certain sections with certain requirements, and it looks as if Gerrie Nel would have to, will really struggle to prosecute, for example, public officials under the provisions of the Criminal Procedure Act.
All right, so it's not as easy as it sounds.
No.
Is it? But explain to us, because I think part of what they were saying is that they're looking into influential people who have been involved in corrupt activities. So are you saying that it's going to be a difficult ride for them to get through that?
Yes, possibly more than difficult, or even impossible, because what the Criminal Procedure Act states is that one must have you can only bring a private prosecution if the person has a direct interest in the case or a direct personal interest in the case. So whereas one can argue that South Africans generally are affected by corruption, so all South Africans have an interest in prosecuting corruption, it's going to be very difficult to prove that the person bringing the case has a direct interest.
Right.
That is going to be almost impossible, especially if it's a really high-profile politician, and it is in those cases that we need those prosecutions most, because the NPA so far, as you know, has failed dismally in successfully prosecuting high-profile public officials.
And a lot of us, we were thinking that is their area of focus, when they bring Gerrie Nel into the Afri-forum. So it might not work out.
Yes, and of course Afri-forum is a very particular kind of organization. It comes from a very particular kind of angle. So I think one also doesn't know exactly what interests will be involved. We know prosecutions are always selective. So, it's not as if there'll be equal justice necessarily.
Yeah. But on the other hand, Section 8 of the Criminal Procedure Act states that bodies with statutory rights can institute private prosecution. So the question is a group like Afri-forum permitted to conduct such private prosecutions?
No, that's another legal hurdle, because it's not a statutory body.
Yeah.
It's not a private individual, and it's not a statutory body. So in that sense, it also doesn't meet the requirements of the Criminal Procedure Act. There was an interesting case last year called SPCA versus NPA, where the SPCA wanted to argue that they can institute a private prosecution, but the hurdle there was that they are, a judicial person and not a natural person. So, they don't meet the requirements of a natural person, but the court hasn't actually, decided whether one necessarily needs to be a natural person. But as the law stands, it has to be a natural person or a statutory body. A juristic person. The SPCA is a juristic person and not a natural person, and therefore they couldn't bring, the private prosecution.
Yeah,
yes.
No, I do know. It's the terminologies of law right there. Yes. But this means that if Afri-forum is not a statutory body, and obviously not permitted to prosecute, this is going to have an effect on the credibility of their cases, isn't it?
Well, it will be more than just having an effect on the credibility of the cases. They will not be able to bring the cases. Perhaps in a narrow, there will be a narrow category of cases they could prosecute, but certainly the ones that one would hope they would prosecute wouldn't, be prosecuted. And then there's they wouldn't be able to prosecute. And then there's the larger question of whether it's a healthy phenomenon to have a private prosecution agency such as this, or whether it shouldn't, ideally, be the function and the task of the National Prosecuting Authority.
But what is your take? Do you think we are in need of such a unit in South Africa?
Of course, many people would say, of course, given the failures of the NPA, there's nothing wrong with a private body stepping in, or with an organization such as Afri-forum stepping in and, making a success of it, getting the money. It shows some initiative. Personally, I don't agree with the politics of Afri-forum. I think that they appeal only to a limited segment of the population. So I think this is certainly one problem. They've been accused of being really conservative, making statements that are not acceptable to a large majority of South Africans.
Which is something that they deny. They've
course,
denied it on many occasions, that they're not just representing the minorities, but they're representing, all the citizens of South Africa.
Yes.
But you said during the beginning of the interview that, a lot of people have their views on the operations of the NPA, and hence many of them would think that this is the way to go.
Right. Well, it depends, To me, it depends on the kind of function. Say the government doesn't build roads, right? And people pool money together to build a road. To me, this is different from creating a alternative or parallel prosecution system. I feel that it is still, a constitutional body, the National Prosecuting Authority. The Constitution set it up in Section 111 under Chapter 8, and I think that should be respected, and that competent people like Gerrie Nel should rather work to improve the NPA. We need good people in the NPA than go elsewhere.
So are you saying that, in your view, the NPA's functions are not necessarily what the country needs?
No. That we need the NPA.
Okay.
We need the NPA to do its job properly, and we need an independent National Director of Public Prosecutions.
But are you saying that the NPA needs Advocate Gerrie Nel in it? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it needs people like Gerrie Nel. It needs highly competent people, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you think that he's, in a way, not going to be able to be the Gerrie Nel that we know, that we've seen at NPA, prosecuting high-profile people and so on? Do you think that this, might have a negative effect on his career, the fact that he joined Afri-forum's unit?
Well, it's difficult, of course, to assess this, right? It's always difficult to be part of...
But looking at the hurdles that comes with the Criminal Procedure Act, I mean, the fact that you were saying that it's going to make it very difficult. Yes, it will certainly be very difficult. Plus the fact that, he was seen as a national figure. I know Peter Vos called him a rock star prosecutor. Yeah. Now he's going to an organization with slightly dubious sort of pedigree that people
character.
Have many views on it. An organization that people have different views on.
No, of course. That's partly my view, but also, even though Afri-forum says it does work for the underprivileged, for black children, etc., there is no doubt that they've made statements, in the Constitutional Court about apartheid being a so-called atrocity, for example. And I think that many people cannot associate with that. Yeah. But there is an additional problem, which is that I feel that there should be equality of justice, right? Yeah. And the justice meted out by the NPA is selective, but the justice meted out by this body will also be selective. They will not take all cases, right? Yeah. And I think it is more compliant with the rule of law to have a National Prosecuting Authority that works well with an independent prosecutor. Yes.
Sure. It's a difficult one, Prof.
Yes.
Yeah, but we'll, just wait and see as to how everything unfolds. Thank you so much for bringing that understanding to us. Thank you very much. There you have it, Professor Mia Swart. She is from the Department of Law at the University of Johannesburg, breaking it up for us here as to what Gerrie Nel faces from the unit that he joined from the 1st of February at Afri-forum. We